Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast, brought to you by JSL Solutions. The Church Solutions Podcast is designed to help equip you and your church in the use of technology and other tools and services. And now, here are your hosts, Steve Lacy and Phil Thompson.
Greetings and welcome everybody to another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast.
Hi, my name is Steve Lacy.
And I'm Phil Thompson. We come to you every week with this podcast. We are a company called JSL Solutions. We love to help churches and ministries use technology to reach their purposes. And Steve and I will tell you a little bit more about the products we offer at the end of this podcast. How's that sound?
That sounds like a plan.
But we do streaming with StreamingChurch.tv, so I just lied to everybody and just mentioned what we do. But the reason I bring that up is because we're going to talk about live encoders for streaming today.
Yes. What's a live encoder for streaming?
Well, a live encoder, so if you're going to do streaming video and, you're going to do online where people can watch your services live, or even if you want to do recorded, you have to have some kind of an encoder. And a streaming live encoder that's what kind of does the magic. You have your camera, you have your video capture cards or video capture devices, you have your, which go into a live encoder. We're going to primarily talk about live encoders that are software that go on your computer today, although there are some hardware-based encoders that we can mention. But you've got to have a live encoder to connect to servers.
Right. Everybody needs a live encoder.
Content delivery network servers, so that people can watch your live stream or watch the archives. So you have to have a live encoder to do that. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yes. So there's a bunch of different options out there with live encoders.
There are. Yeah, there are lots of options out there. We're going to tell you about some free options. If you're doing streaming video, you might want to listen to this because there's some newer products out there and something you might want to upgrade or do something with.
And some products you may or may not have heard about.
Yeah, we'll give you the pros and cons.
Yeah, and if there's one out there that we don't cover, let us know.
We'd love to hear from you. Just send us an email, support@StreamingChurch.tv. All right, so what kicks off our first live encoder, Steve?
So the one that's probably been around the longest, it's debatable, but this is a free one. It is by Adobe that makes Photoshop and all the web development tools, and they put out Flash Media Live Encoder many moons ago.
All right, so Flash Media Live Encoder. Now, I've noticed some people out there today say, well, it's just junk. Well, actually, in its day, it was a pretty good encoder, and it still is okay. It's all right for what it does.
There are people that are passionate about not liking it, that's for sure, but it is probably the most popular, definitely the most popular free one that's available.
Yeah, I would say so, and there's pros and cons to it.
Yes,
more cons now that we're
more
into
cons
2016.
Yeah. So let's talk pros. So number one pro is it's free. Number two pro, it's from a reputable company, and it's proven, and it's widely available and pretty easy to use.
Yeah, you can download it in just a matter of a couple minutes.
Yes,
on your computer. It's I think very simple to use, very easy to use. You can make some settings and drop your credentials. You need streaming credentials that companies will give you. It's pretty good in that sense. It's if you want to do so. As far as the pros go, I think we pretty much covered it. Right?
I know. I've got lots of cons.
Yeah, there are some cons to it, but I think for the most part, it's good for that use. Now, if you want to do multiple cameras, multiple inputs, you cannot do it with the Adobe Flash Media Live Encoder by itself. You could put a switcher in front of it, a video switcher in front of it.
Right. So, but the Flash Media Live Encoder is just going to receive the one video signal, and if you switch it upstream of that, then you can do that.
That can work.
Right.
It's great for standard definition streaming. It's not so good for high resolution, high definition streaming.
Yes, we've early on as people are transitioning to HD. The most common complaint we get is, well, it doesn't recognize my camera. I mean, you launch Flash Media Live Encoder, and it just doesn't even see your capture device that's feeding an HD signal. Or some people say, I've got my HD signal coming in, but when I broadcast, my video and my audio are out of sync.
Yeah.
So typically, if you've got an HD input coming into Flash Media Live Encoder, we anticipate problems for people.
HDMI coming out of your camera can be a problem
Right.
for it. So yeah, and there's people that use video capture devices to try to take that HDMI coming out of the camera, like Blackmagic or something, and that's usually where the problem comes. If you've got some kind of a composite video capture deal, then it usually works pretty good.
Yeah, for the lower res stuff, it works really fine. So another con is Adobe's kind of given up on it. They have not made an update to their software since 2009, so it is approaching 7 years ago that it's had any updates at all. Not sure what their plan is. I assume they're just saying, well, we're not going to spend any money on it, but we're not taking it offline or either. So
yeah, so it can be, and we have a lot of customers that have been with us for years and they've upgraded their equipment, but they haven't upgraded their live encoder,
right,
and so they upgrade their equipment and they try to use it with Flash Media Live Encoder, and they start having issues.
right.
So,
Another pro I just thought of is it's both Mac and PC.
yeah, that's a pro.
So that's a
very
pro.
good.
So if
Yeah.
you've got a Mac, it is an option.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to a different encoder, one that's starting to pick up some steam out there with popularity. It's called vMix.
Yes, and you can pick this up at vMix HD or vmix.com now.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, I think it's a relatively new player to the field, but I'm not sure about you, but I sure seem to we've gotten a lot of exposure to it, and a lot of people rave about it.
Yeah,
So,
it's a company based out of Australia, I believe.
oh, it is?
I'm pretty sure they're based out of Australia. And my experience so far is their customer support's been good.
Yes.
You know, they're a little bit time difference from where we're at, so you may not get a response right away, but you'll usually get one within a day or so.
Right. So moving into the vMix, talking some of the pros. Well, one of the pros is they do have a free version that you can run. They have actually multiple versions that you can run. That some are paid and some are free. The free version is going to limit your input resolutions and number of inputs that you can feed into it.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So, but on the pros side, you move into vMix, and now you've got the ability to switch between multiple inputs as well as inputs that you have connected to the computer, as well as video files you may store on the computer, or even just images you have on the computer. You can switch.
Right.
Yes, and the other big benefit is you can do lower thirds. So you can create it's more of a video production studio. You can do your camera switching, you lay in the lower thirds, you can set up different transitions. It's a more professional product than you're going to find with just the Flash Media Live Encoders. Kind of its niche was, let's just get some video out on the web. And this one is more of, I'm putting on a show. I'm broadcasting my church service, and I want to put a lower third up when the guy doing announcements comes up, or the worship singer singing, or the lead pastor speaking.
And the pro is, of course, the cost. It's there's a free version. There's a upgraded version for a mere $60, and then there's even other versions you can get. So that's a pretty nice plus.
Yes. So for $60, you can basically have everything you need to stream a really professional service on the web. So some cons on that arena. Cons are
you can't use them. You can't put it on a Mac.
Yes, it is PC only. Yeah. Other cons?
Well, I mean, I don't see this as a major con, but I mean, they are in Australia, and so if you're in the United States or North America, you may have to wait a day or two before you get customer support. But we were just talking earlier about Flash Media Live Encoder. Their support is non-existent.
Yes, there's some forums out there if you run into issues, or if you're listening to this podcast, there's a good chance that we'll provide support for Flash Media Live Encoder for you.
But vMix, I mean, other than the fact that it's not available at this point, of what we've seen, it's not available for Mac. vMix, I think, has a lot of great positive deals to it.
Yes.
I think it can tend to use a little bit of your CPU depending on what you're doing on, because right now we're talking about software-based encoders right now. And so if you have a weak computer, you might want to make sure you've got plenty of horsepower for your computer,
Right.
because it does tend to use a little more CPU than obviously a Flash Mini Live encoder
Yeah.
would.
So, and as we get into these more professional and these paid versions, another pro is they have agreements with the various streaming providers. So we're a preset on the streaming providers. So you can go in. The setup becomes much easier. We'll provide credentials for you, and you log in, put your login and password in.
Right. Pretty simple. All right. So let's kind of move on to other live encoders.
All right. So let's see. OBS, Open Broadcaster Software.
Open Broadcaster Software. So that is this is open source, so it's free. It's available to put on your PC as well as your Mac, and even if you use a different operating system like Linux, you can put it on there, right?
Yes. So this is, as I mentioned, it's open source. So it is developed by the community. So there's a bunch of different developers in there. There's no particular one owner of it. But like other open source software, it gets regular updates. So it's actively supported and actively moving forward.
Right.
It's to the point now where they're not calling it a 1.0 release, but it is available. It's a 0.5 release. So I'm not sure what happens when they make it their 1.0, but it has been around for at least a couple of years.
At least, yeah.
And so, and it gets regular updates. I don't know. I see updates every few months or so to it. But it started out kind of in the realm of the Flash Mini Live encoder, where it was started very basic, and it is still somewhat basic, but it does allow some video switching, multiple inputs. It's a very simple interface to look at and understand what's going on and how to set things up.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to call somebody on the phone and get support, but I think they do have support, through their community.
Okay. Open Broadcaster System, OBS. All right. So make a note of that if you're thinking about.
So pros, it's free.
Yeah, it is free.
And another pro is it's Mac and PC and Linux. And cons are, I guess it doesn't have a big company behind it, but it does have a big community behind it.
Yeah. I'm not that familiar with the cons. I don't know what cons would be. So.
Probably not as popular, and people probably haven't heard about it as much.
Yeah.
So that's another con.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So moving on to live encoders. Here's one that's lots of people like. It's called Wirecast.
Yes, Wirecast from Telestream. And this is kind of the big daddy in the encoder world. They have a couple of versions. They're both fairly expensive. The one that churches would be interested in would be the $500 version. They have a $900 version that throws in some tools like automated scoreboards and things like that. Are kind of geared for sporting events and that kind of thing.
In case you're keeping score at your church or something.
Yes.
Yeah. Wirecast is good. It's you can put it on your PC, you can put it on your Mac.
Yes.
And as you just said, Steve, they're I'm not sure. I've heard conflicting reports about their customer service. Some people say it's good. Some people say it's not so good.
I think their legacy is they're from a much larger company called Telestream, and I think Telestream purchased the Wirecast product, and I think it quickly became one of their primary sellers. I could be wrong, but I would think it is probably one of their main primary tools. It is, again, they're going to provide support. Because you're paying $500, I think they have
you have to pay more if you want really quick support. They have
executive level support. They have some subscription program or something like that.
Yeah, you got to have to do that. So, again, it's a good.
You don't have to do the support. You don't have to pay for the extra support.
No, you don't have to.
But yes, if you want it, you can definitely pay for it.
I'm not sure. I mean, we've used it quite a bit. We can walk you through some things. I think there may be some issues. You want to make sure you have a good video capture device, in my opinion, that they kind of recommend or they like.
That's true.
because if you sometimes is, and this is not what we're talking about today, but video capture devices, and we should probably do a podcast on that since that's changed a little bit over the years. But you've got to have some kind of a video capture card or video capture device that goes between your camera, or your switcher anyhow, and your computer. And so if you got one that's kind of finicky, it could cause a problem.
With any of these encoders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, it's one nice thing about, I guess, Wirecast is they have a list of capture devices that they have tested themselves, and then they have an extended list that other people have tested.
Yeah.
So there's probably a good chance that it's going to work. So pros on this side, Mac and PC. It's got all the production studio tools and stuff that you can do within vMix.
Sure. Lower thirds, multiple camera inputs, audio inputs, all that good stuff.
Yeah, different video source inputs from recorded files to other elements. We're using this at our church and have been for probably a couple of years now.
I think so.
It can be a little intimidating to operate.
Really?
You want to spend a few minutes with somebody that can kind of show you the ropes with it. It's not, I don't know, it's not as intuitive as some of the others that I've seen. So, but
that's not been my experience. But then again, I'm not doing it every weekend.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's move on, shall we?
Sure.
So Live Encoders, software-based VidBlaster.
Yes.
I have really very little experience with VidBlaster.
Yeah, so do I. It's I poked into it. It's probably been 2 or 3 years ago, so it's been around for a while. Its niche is the PC, and it's geared to be a video streaming and coding tool. It seemed like it may have a smaller market than some of these others. I'm not sure.
Well, some of these too, as we talk about some of these next couple ones, there's the gaming market. So, we're talking here obviously about streaming video and streaming your services and all that stuff for church. But there are gamers that use these encoders. I think they use VidBlaster is another one we'll talk about here in a moment that they use to do their gaming and stream their gaming.
Right.
And my son's doing some of this, although I don't think he's streaming it. But, they're doing Xbox, they're doing these video games, and some of these guys.
Is he using VidBlaster? Or?
He's not using any of these right now that I know of. But he does the whole gaming thing. He's 17 or whatever. But a lot of these people that are gamers, which is quite a big thing now. This new generation, they will stream their live gaming.
Oh yeah.
And so they will use something like VidBlaster or XSplit or something like that. And so that's kind of where you get into some of this now. When you start looking at Live Encoders, sometimes you'll see them talk a lot about here's what we can use for the gaming element and all that.
Right, and one of them we're going to talk about in a minute is kind of primarily geared toward that. I'm not sure the VidBlaster is geared towards that, but it's PC only. It's not free. They don't have a free version that I'm aware of.
I don't believe so.
So it is a paid tool. I don't know. I'm not sure how recently updated it's been.
Yeah. It's an option out there. That's what we're doing here on this particular podcast is giving people options. You might want to look it up, folks. Look at VidBlaster.
Somebody that has more experience with it than we do. It's not one that we recommend off the top of our head. I'm not sure exactly why, but
well, it's because we like vMix and some of these other ones we just mentioned. But
right.
Yeah. So, but look it up. VidBlaster is an opportunity there. Another one. And again, as we start doing these things like Wirecast and multiple kind of studios deals, you have to keep in mind your computer. If your CPU will labor a little more, and you want to make sure it's healthy.
Right. So as you get into, as you say, you're going to encode multiple quality streams and record a high quality stream on your computer, you're going to need a fairly high horsepower computer.
So, all right. So you mentioned it just a minute ago. XSplit.
Yes.
The letter XSplit. This has several versions, right? There's a free version as well as a.
Yes, they have a couple of a free version and then some upgraded paid versions. And it looks like, which is common with some of these other encoders, is as you move up the the paid versions or the free versions are going to have limitations on resolution inputs and number of inputs into them.
Right.
So XSplit's another one that we've had some customers that are using. We don't have a lot of experience with them. Their target is really the gaming industry or the gamer
Right.
to broadcast their game that
Yeah.
we talked about. So
Yeah.
not sure they're going to have capabilities for lower thirds and video switching and those sort of things that would be more prevalent in a production studio environment like Wirecast or vMix.
So there's a free version. There's a $5 a month version.
Yes, their licensing is a monthly fee.
Yeah, I think there's even a $9 premium, whatever that is.
Okay. Exactly. So yes.
All right. So if you've got other ideas, folks, as far as live encoders that are software based, or we'll mention a couple hardware based here real quick since we have some time.
And the landscape has really changed over the years.
Yes.
I mean, 3-4 years ago, it was FlashMe Live Encoder or Wirecast. It was you either got $500 or you're stuck with FlashMe Live Encoder. There was no options in between on the low cost or no cost deals, and now there's a bunch of no cost. I mean, it's probably following the trend that streaming is more and more prevalent, not only for churches but for everything.
Right.
So.
Okay. So very quickly, just an alternative to a software-based encoder would be Teradek. There's a Teradek Vidiu, VIDIU, which is a little box.
Yes, little box, the size of, what is it? Probably. It's not as bigger than a deck of cards, but not a whole lot bigger than.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
You can put it on a camera. It's a live encoder, but it's not. It doesn't go on your computer. It's a box that you can set up for streaming. You can use Wi-Fi, Ethernet cables to connect it. You can connect right to your camera. It's about $700, but you would not need a computer then. You would not need a video capture device. You could get this device and use it, and there's settings you can preset it and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And it's Teradek, VIDIU.
Right. So probably the optimum spot for that is if I'm at a church and I have one camera and I don't want to deal with a computer and I just connect my inputs into this camera and this box is connected to my Wi-Fi and I push the stream button and I'm rocking and rolling.
Yeah. And there's several companies out there that are using this. Some of them are sticking their own labels on it. If you're interested in something like this, just let us know. We can certainly help you with that area. But it's an option. It's another live encoder option that I think is something good to consider.
Yes, definitely.
And then one more, of course, is the big gorilla, I guess, in the market, TriCaster.
Yes. So TriCaster from NewTek, been around probably longer than any of these guys, you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely, because TV stations would use them to, do mobile broadcast to different locations and stuff. They've been around for a long time.
Right, so dozens of years or so, or
at least it's a big unit. I mean, it's basically the size, almost the size of a computer, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, they're have made changes over the years. I mean, initially they were really big boxes.
They've kind of modified them a little bit. Sometimes you do have to pair them to another computer that's Windows based.
They've I think they've come a long way. This is when you get into the TriCaster arena, then you've got some budget to spend on some dedicated hardware.
Like $4,000 or more, right?
Well, that would be your introductory low end TriCaster is around $4,000. Yeah. They have units in the tens of thousands. Probably don't have $100,000 unit, but they definitely have some tens of $1,000 units. I know when we first got started, their floor was around $7,000 or $8,000, and now they've brought their cost down to the $4,000 unit.
I think the original one we had was $8,000, plus we had to spend another $1,000 on a computer.
Yes,
to like do lower thirds and stuff with it.
Yes, and they had
very expensive, I thought.
Yes, and they had an interface and some lower third software that I and some others at my church grew to really not like.
That was years ago.
Hate's a strong word, but it was like,
well, that was years ago.
Yes.
Maybe it's improved a little bit. All
yes,
right.
it probably has. So, yes, pros on the TriCaster is it's gonna have a ton of inputs that are just ready to be plugged in. So there's a really good chance that you're going to have inputs for your cameras into it, and enough inputs, audio and video inputs. Cons are, well, one, it's really expensive. Pros, again, they've been doing this a long time. They've kind of got it figured out. They've got decent switching software and that sort of thing built into it. It is running a version of Windows on it. So maybe a Mac guy would say that would be a con, but
well, and like any hardware-based live encoder, if something goes wrong with it, if something burns out on it, you could have a little problem. You may have to ship it back.
Yes, because it's a computer, but it's a specialized computer. Right. It's not one that's easily maintained.
Yeah. And so you could have a little bit of downtime for a week or two. Whereas if you had, maybe if you had a software-based live encoder, if your computer went down, you can always download the software on another computer and get it up and running, hopefully within a matter of just a short period of time. Whereas if a hardware-based live encoder goes down, you could be stuck unable to live for maybe a few days or a week or two.
Or a few weeks, yeah. Our experience was, we had a lightning strike and had some damage, and they definitely service them, but just getting them shipped in and out is going to take some time, and having them work on it's going to take some time. So, and getting a loaner is not cheap. So
that can be hard too sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, so we're out of time. So our company is JSL Solutions. If you, we do streaming video, StreamingChurch.tv. We also have mobile apps, ChurchAppLive.com. We also have church management tools, MyFlock.com. And we even have a live greeter set up that you could get for your church website, and where you could load some code. It only takes a couple of minutes. It's called greeter.church.
Yes. And
if you're interested in that, we can, if somebody comes to your website, which most people are going to look at your website before they come to your church, you have a live greeter on there. They can answer some questions, correspond with people, interact with people. And it's a great little product. So we have lots of things that we can help you with as your church. And if we can help you with anything, just send us an email, support@StreamingChurch.tv. There you have it.
All righty.
All right. So we are out of here. He's Steve Lacy. I'm Phil Thompson. Thanks for spending a little bit of time on this Church Solutions podcast. We will catch you next time on another edition. Have a great day.